It occurred to me, and I believe that a well-lived life, that is a life that you would consider authentic and having integrity, a well-lived life isn't built in grand moments. It's actually made in small, unseen choices. It's about staying consistent when no one is watching.
Welcome, everybody. It's time once again for the next chapter with Charlie Hedges, as he explores turning the page on his life and yours.
Hi, all, and welcome to the next chapter with Charlie. It's so good to have you with me today. Today is a bit of a different show. I don't have a guest. Today, I wrote a blog that is going to get posted this weekend. And I thought it meant so much to me. I thought it would be good to share on the podcast. And it's titled When No One Is Watching. So let me read the blog. And then I plan to discuss, not long, maybe 30 minutes. I plan to discuss what's going on in my mind according to the aspects of a well-lived life when no one is watching. Let's go to the blog. Sounds like this. It's titled, When No One Is Watching. I've been thinking lately, not so much about what people say they believe, but what their lives actually demonstrate. Oh, it's so easy to name our values. We could talk about honesty, compassion, courage, integrity with real conviction. We post them, we frame them, teach them, defend them even. But living them? That's something else. There's often a quiet gap that can open up between who we claim to be and how we act. And it's not so much about hypocrisy. I'm talking about something much subtler, a slow drift, a justification here, a blind spot there, and over time, a distance seems to grow between who we are and what we value. We will say family comes first, but our calendar may tell a different story. We say truth matters. That is, unless it gets in the way of my goals. The danger isn't that we fail, it's that we stop noticing. It's that we grow comfortable with the gap. At this stage in my life, I find that I care much less about being impressive and more about being authentic. I ask myself, do my daily choices reflect my core values? I wonder if someone were to watch my life without hearing my rationale, my values, what I believe, would they, by my action, be able to name my values the same way I do? That question is humbling for sure. Think about this. Integrity isn't built in grand moments. It's made in small, almost unseen choices, in saying no when it would be easier to rationalize with a yes. Integrity is about staying consistent when no one is watching. And so the moral of the story is yes, the truth is you are your morality. That is so striking and so true to me. I really think that is important, and that's what I want to talk about. And as I wrote the essay, it occurred to me, and I believe that a well-lived life, that is a life that you would consider authentic and having integrity, a well-lived life isn't built in grand moments. It's actually made in small, unseen choices. It's about staying consistent when no one is watching. Obviously, there is no single path to a well-lived life, but there are qualities that seem to appear along the way. And in my mind, I find four qualities that have sort of defined my values and my ethics and my essence, actually. And they are authenticity, curiosity, resilience, and spirituality. These four are not achievements, they're practices. Practices quietly chosen over and over and over again. These qualities don't certainly come with or guarantee any kind of ease, but you know what they do is they develop a sense of or deepen a sense of presence. And over time, they shape a life that feels not so much perfect, but true. Yes, true to our core nature. So let's take a look at these four values and let's evaluate them. And I'll use my life as an example of how they have occurred and come up in my life. Authenticity, curiosity, resilience, and spirituality. Let's begin with authenticity. I think I am still, at 76 years old, I am still wrestling with authenticity. Who am I? I would say I've quit wrestling. No, let me rephrase that. Up until last year, up until about 75 years old, I was, finding out, trying to discover who am I, what am I trying to do, who am I trying to be? And it's all about authenticity. And I feel like I spent my years 20 to 30 seeking authenticity. And then post retirement, from 65 to 75, I had to revisit authenticity. And as I was writing, let me read to you something I wrote as I looked at it, that authenticity is not a choice, it's a firm existential reality, and it's an existential reality, deep and core, that is defined by our experiences and our DNA. It's not about being perfect, it's about being real, showing up as you are, not as you think you should be, or even worse, what other people think you should be. And it glows when your outer life finally catches up to the inner truth. I think one of the things we wrestle with is, who is it that we really are? Who is it that we are? Who is it that we are trying to live according to? According to someone else's goals, we begin by having parental goals, and then we make a shift. Hopefully, we make a shift to identifying our interior goals, our interior life of authenticity. And I think that is, for me, that may be one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, important decision I have made in the last, well, maybe in my entire life. And that is figuring out who I am and what I'm all about. And these four things, these four issues, these four qualities define much of who I am. Being real as I know how to be, without trying to, I don't know if I said it here yet or not, or I know I've been thinking it. It's not about living according to a list of outside values, but a set of core inner values. And mine are always about compassion, kindness, love, and then the ones that help me get there are inspiration and influence. Compassion, kindness, love, inspiration, influence. If I am doing those, that is what I'm about. That's what I'm built to do. And as long as I am authentic to that, I'm in good shape. I'm heading in the direction that I want to head in. I'm not living according to some prescribed value by neither a parent or religious leader or anyone else. This is between me and God, my therapist, my spiritual director, my wife, and my son. Those are the people that determine my core nature. The next one, curiosity. Now, this is huge in my life. Curiosity is giant. Curiosity runs my life. If I am what I am and who I am because I am innately curious. I want to know the questions of what is beneath this, not just facts, but always wondering what is meaning made of. So that's why I travel, I'm not, I think it was really funny. I was with my son in spring training last week. And it was just prior to spring training, the day before the pitchers and catchers reported. And as a catcher, he reports early. And when I was in the clubhouse having a cup of coffee, the clubhouse manager came up, and my son and him have developed a really good relationship. And this guy is a traveler. And this guy says, "Oh, I understand you like to travel." I said, "Yeah, I travel a bit. I think I've been to about 35 countries, and as I say with a rather braggadocious sort of aura to me." And then he says, "Yeah, I'm at 104." And I just shut up. I said, I haven't even traveled. That's different. But that is a hungry, curious person that has traveled to 104 countries. My friend Rand Sperry has visited, I know, over 150 countries, and there's only like 190 countries, and I don't know how you visit 150 countries. Maybe I'll get 10 or 12 or more in the next decade or so. But the driver is being curious, asking why, learning about when I travel. I found on this last trip that we did to Asia, I found a beautiful quote that I've written about. I don't know if I've talked about on the blog, or on the podcast. But the quote was this: "I no longer take vacations to sightsee. I explore pilgrimages to discover wonder." So I am a terrible sightseer. You don't want to travel with me. If you want to go to France, like say you're going to France, then you want to go to obviously the Notre Dame, to Paris, to the Eiffel Tower. I could care less. A tall cement beamed structure does not does no longer wows me. You know what wows me? It's walking the side streets of Paris. It's getting an Airbnb right in the middle of the suburb. Kind of a downtown, not in the middle of downtown, but in the middle of where people live downtown. Hanging out at the bakeries, the restaurants, where the people are, what people are doing. I like to feel the culture. I like to, obviously I don't need too much of one, but I like to get haircuts, or kind of trim my beard, go into a barber shop, and explore that in a country. I'm just curious what draws them, and so that is curiosity and wonder are really huge. And so we've got being authentic. So I'm living according to who I am and according to my creative nature. Secondly, I'm curious. I just want to know. I want to experience. I want to taste. I want to see. There's so many questions I have in life that I want to bring to the table, or I want to discover at the table. The third one, I read about this. I have a tool that, it's actually an AI tool that knows all my blogs, knows everything, and so it understands my voice, my writing style, who I am. It was you want to talk about something really depressing, is that I wanted to have it explore my voice. We each have a voice, and I wanted to maintain my voice in my blogs, and so I asked it to read all my blogs. I've written blogs for a decade. 10 years or more, maybe 11 years. I don't know. It's been It's been a while. I think 2015 or 2016 is when I started. And so weekly, you're looking at 50 a year times 10, so it's 500, maybe 11, 550. And so I gave the AI my web address, thenextchapter.life, and asked it to read my blogs and then to sort of describe back to me my voice and what it reads out of my voice. And that was a fascinating process. And it was so helpful. Not that I learned something about myself, but I I I put some things together that I haven't put together. And truly, these four areas of authenticity, curiosity, resilience, and spirituality were the four things that it said were four of the issues, qualities that it said seem to underline all that you do. Authenticity, curiosity, and spirituality, absolutely. Resilience, I never thought of myself as resilient, and yet nothing has really held me back. I I I I don't know that I never call them failures. We learn from failures. I, for some reason, I'm reluctant to call them failures. I call them, I learn from situations that didn't turn out the way I hoped they would turn out, but I learned from them. And I like what this statement says. It's about resilience, and resilience is merely a matter of not so much being tenacious, but showing up. And the sentence I wrote is resilience is not so much about tenacity as it is about presence, just showing up, even when hope feels thin. That is what tenacity is, y'all. Tenacity is just hanging in there no matter what, showing up for your role in life, what is important to you in life, how you value it, and that you don't get disappointed and that you don't quit. And that is key. That is resilience. Resilience is not being hampered by when things don't go my way. And then we come to the final one, which is huge in my life. I do blogs on it. I've done podcasts on it. But the subject is spirituality, and spirituality. I don't mean religiosity. I don't necessarily, although my spirituality is very divine centric, God centric, theocentric, as they say. So God is a part of my spirituality. I read a lot about spirituality that says God doesn't have to be involved. Okay, I get that. I get that. I think doctrine doesn't have to be involved. Religious doctrine doesn't have to be involved. But I personally feel that we're missing much if we don't see the divine. We don't see the glorious hand of a kind and beautiful creator. We look at life, and there's certainly a lot of tragedy in life, but there's just a lot of wonder and glory in creation. You get out of the city and you get into nature, and it's just beautiful. That is the handiwork of the divine. Um, um, it's this is I'll read what I wrote. I'm looking at my notes and I'm gonna shut my notes off and I'm just gonna chat. But what I wrote about spirituality, it's a sense that there's more beneath the surface. That life isn't just events, but invitations, not about specific doctrine, but about listening for what matters in the silence and in the noise. And spirituality, for me, spirituality drives me, drives what I do, who I am. I try to practice spirituality daily. I go monthly to an abbey. I'm not Roman Catholic, yet I go to a Roman Catholic Benedictine abbey for a month, for 3 days. I have a spiritual director that's a monk. In fact, I was fortunate that the abbot is my spiritual director, and for a guy who's not a Catholic and not a legalist, it is very interesting to have an abbot who is believe me, this is a Roman Catholic rule follower, and yet he has lived a life that is so full and so rich and so full of God, so full of love, so full of compassion, that he's just attractive. We don't have him with a list of, Charlie, what'd you do wrong? Where it's like going into a confessional. It's like two guys chatting. I'm his I'm his senior, but I'm senior to a lot of people nowadays. He's in his early 60s or late 50s or early 60s, but he's brilliant. And he just contributes to the depth of my spirituality. So I want to ask you, what for you is a life well lived? And for each of us, it is different. It has to be different. It's beautifully, wonderfully different. But I will ask you, does it include being who you are, being curious, so being authentic, being curious, filled with what ifs? What does this mean? What might be? What could be? And if I'm on the other side of the personality chart, what is, but who cares what is? What is important about what is the vital matter. So it's authenticity, it's curiosity, it's about showing up in spite of the circumstances, or because of the circumstances, we still just show up. And the bottom line, integrator of all, is spirituality, a connection to divine, to a connection to the divine in all things. And let me close this brief little show with this observation. You may have heard, I speak about this a lot, so I may have read about it. You may have heard me talk about it. I don't know. But it is frequently taught in the creation myth in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. Well, in Genesis 1 especially, after the 7 days of creation, after 6 days of creation, God said, it is quoted, God said, and it was good. As if it's good because the divine creator pronounced it such, that pronounced it is good. So everything I made is good. But that's not what the text says. That's not what the Bible says. And I think we miss the whole meaning of the creation story if we miss the meaning, if we miss the wording of this phrase. The Bible nowhere in any translation, and God maybe in some translation, but in the major translations, does not say that God said it was good. Do you know what it says? And God saw that it was good. The next day, and God saw that it was good. After his act of creation each day, and God saw that it was good. In other words, the beauty is God is an artist, a creator who created each day of the creation story, and then looked back and like an artist who had just painted a wonderful piece or is working on a wonderful piece, and at the end of the day, with a beer in his hand, sat back and looked at his art and said, "Damn, that's good." That's what God said. Damn, that's good. And it's good because it reflects the nature, the core, the authenticity of the Creator. God bless, and see you.